Hello and welcome to the 38th episode of Growing Up Geek, the weekly podcast for geek entertainment and nostalgia. My name is Brad and I'm joined as always by my brother Rob.
Hello.
How you doing on this fine fall summer day? Hard to tell.
Some leaves are changing ahead of schedule, but you know.
They weren't informed. It still is summer, but I think as far as the movie summer, you know, the big blockbuster movie summer, that's pretty much over. I think Tropic Thunder was like the last big blockbuster movie, and so we're sort of going to start to see a lot of the game news pick up now.
Absolutely.
Because
I mean, we're all kind of heading into the holiday seasons here. And
one of your favorite times, I know.
Oh, yes.
Although this year, it seems like November's actually not that special compared to the other months surrounding it.
Not that special. Need I remind you, sir, that the Xbox 360 Fall Update is coming out in November, and that's going to be a complete overhaul. And I know I'm going to be giddy like a schoolboy on Christmas Day whenever that thing updates and it just completely changes. But sorry, didn't mean to go 360 fanboy for a second, but yeah.
No, that's okay. Yeah, and Gears of War 2 obviously will drop in November, and Fallout 3 I think will be actually no, that's actually earlier than November, so it's going to be action-packed the rest of the year. But and we certainly will not stop covering movies on Growing Up Geek. But
we may
stop. We if there's good ones, we'll watch them. But there may be an influx of more gaming news, and this episode is probably a good kickoff to that.
Yep.
You have some video game geek news that interested you this week.
Microsoft is getting ready for the big video games season here with much predicted but exciting news. 360 has a price cut.
Boom.
Boom. Pretty substantial cuts across the board. The standard Xbox and the Xbox Elite have both been cut by $50, and the Xbox Arcade,
the family Xbox,
exactly, has been cut by a whopping $80.
Oh, wow.
Right, bringing its price to $200 and making it cheaper than the $250 Nintendo Wii.
Now that is significant.
That is significant.
One more salvo from Microsoft into the burgeoning grandmother market.
Yeah, and especially with their November update kind of making things more Wii-esque on the system, you can see that there's probably going to be a pretty big advertising push towards the casual market.
Oh, yeah.
This came at a pretty opportune time for me. I mean, with everything going on in my life, I've had the red ring of death twice.
Right. You're not having a good year. Apartment burns down, 360. Okay, so we'll hope to turn it around here.
Yeah. Apparently what it is that my disk drive burnt out or isn't working. I think that what happened is the motor has died.
Did it start making like a grinding sound before that happened?
No, I didn't really notice any noise. In fact, I mean,
because mine's doing that. Mine's making like this noise, and I'm worried. But go ahead.
Check your warranty, because I checked my warranty. You can actually check it out online. If it's $200 for a 360 arcade, I could get one of those puppies and
just slap your hard drive on it.
And the nice thing is, all brands of the 360 now come with an HDMI port.
That's great. Yeah, so you'd actually get an upgrade for less. And that's the way it should be, you know?
Absolutely. But one thing, I mean, you can buy the 360 arcade and the 120 gigabyte hard drive for less than it costs to get the 360 Elite. And the only thing you would not be getting is an HDMI cable, a wireless controller, and...
But you would get some games.
You'd get some games, and you'd get a memory card.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. Now, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think that Microsoft will be able to maintain the family market and the hardcore market? Because obviously they're not abandoning the Gears of War crowd. But they are pursuing, you know, especially with this fall update and everything and this price drop, they're pursuing this family market. Do you think that they'll succeed where Nintendo's being criticized?
Well, yes and no. I mean, Xbox Live Arcade is definitely the primary force as it appeals to casual gamers.
Right.
With things like 1 versus 100 being on Xbox Live Arcade.
Yeah, it's like they just need a killer app, you know, to really convince families.
I think the thing that Wii still has is that the controller is far less intimidating to a newcomer.
And that's really, I mean, let's be honest, that's the secret. You know?
I just heard a story the other day about a girl who had never played any video games, and The first video game she gets really hooked on, Oblivion.
Oh, wow. Quite a starter. Oh, geez. That reminds me. Did you hear real quick about this girl that saved her family from the car accident because she played Grand Theft Auto?
No.
Yeah, the car flipped over, and she told the family they had to get out, and her mother said she knew that cars sometimes blow up because she had seen that in Grand Theft Auto. Like when a car flips over. So the news story was like Grand Theft Auto blamed for saving family, something like that. Anyway, I just had to say that. So the 360 price is coming down.
Yeah,
an opportune time, and that'll be good.
That will be good. Now, what's going on with you? What news stories have interest you?
Well, I hate to give Google more press time 2 weeks in a row, but I think they're using this kind of slow movie news period as a point to sort of strike while the iron's hot. Today, there was the beta release of their new browser, which came as a total surprise to me that they were even making a browser. The browser is called Chrome, and I actually had quite a bit of time to play around with it today at work. We were testing some sites in it and everything, and I gotta say, I think this is the quickest conversion that I've ever had to a browser. In the few hours that I played with it, I was already into it. And the consensus I'm seeing from around the interwebs, the YouTubes, is that people are pretty quickly getting into it. It's very streamlined. It's very simple. It has almost the bare minimum of icons and menu bars and things, of course, as Google is known for. But it is lightning fast. And I thought Firefox 3 was fast. When you press the icon for Chrome, it just like pops up. I mean, it's really cool. Now, it has some features that initially take some time to get used to, but you start to see the sense. All of the tabs, the main feature that they're really pushing, and this is actually illustrated in a comic book form on Google Chrome's website, every tab runs in its own separate memory. This is good for security because things don't have access to the actual operating system. And on top of that, if a tab crashes, then your browser doesn't crash. It's only that tab. I don't know. I just found it to be really cool. So
I actually heard them discussing Google Chrome on NPR, and they said for Google to be successful with this browser, they don't even need to be first place. All they have to do is get like modules made for it. And if those modules make their way eventually into Internet Explorer or into Firefox, they've already won.
Yeah, and something that scares a lot of people about Google, that they sort of helped, for me anyway, with this comic book, was that Google's kind of faceless. I mean, they don't really have like a Bill Gates that you know and you see, or a Steve Jobs that you can always say, oh yeah, that's Joe Google right there,
Yeah.
And this comic actually showed all of their engineers in comic book form, describing in very friendly ways, oh, here's why we did this, and here's why I did that. To me, that humanized the company, makes them a little less scary.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that is Geek News for this week, and that leads us into our main topic of discussion, which is going to be Mercenaries 2, World in Flames. Our impressions.
Burn.
Yeah. If you listen to this show, you'll know that in our most anticipated of 08 episode, this was one of my most anticipated games. And before I talk about my opinion, I will ask you. We've been playing it a little bit. I guess quick information about this game is it's developed by Pandemic Studios, a company that previously made the 2005 Mercenaries Playgrounds of Destruction. So you play as one of three mercenaries. Who did you choose? I chose Matthias.
I started off as playing as Jennifer, the kind of faster female character. I thought it was interesting how the dialogue seemed to structure around her obsession with money. So I was like, I wonder how it'd be different if I played as somebody else. So I went back and played the intro again, this time as Chris Jacobs, the artillery specialist. He gets a bonus in how much ammo he can carry.
Right.
And there's just like one little moment where like the guy you're talking is like,
right.
Chris, this is Solano. Like clearly a moment where they insert the name of the character you're playing as.
Yeah, I was curious, does it still have the stuff with Solano, the job for Solano at the beginning?
Yeah, absolutely. It still revolves very much around this kind of Venezuelan president.
Right. You start by running a job for him. The first level is actually a job for him, and there's a bit of a double cross, and then the rest of the game is spent trying to get even with him.
Right.
So it's an open-world game. How would you describe it? I guess, is sandbox gameplay, do you use that word?
You can go anywhere, you can grab anything, you can kind of do stuff in Your missions will send you to specific locations, but you're not necessarily restricted to just do that.
Right. What is? Can you explain to me the sandbox thing? I'm sorry, I just on a tangent, but I never understood how is open world gaming like a sandbox?
Well, I mean, I guess what it means is that you can make of the game world anything that you want.
I just got a cell phone call too. Is that
Mom and Dad?
Okay. All right, continue with the episode.
Yeah.
And I think comparisons to Grand Theft Auto are the most obvious here, but this has a more of a military twist.
Yes, little military flavor.
I found that my character Matthias was actually a lot like Nico. He just wants money. He's not too concerned with anything else except for himself and just getting that cash. And the game doesn't pull any punches. It's about that, and I thought that was pretty cool. But unlike Nico, who can go and stab, shoot, and drive, this was like tanks, helicopters with missiles, bazookas, rocket launchers. I mean, this is really set up for destruction.
Yeah.
Lots of it.
Yeah, and I guess that's where the whole concept of it being mercenaries is important, because mercenaries can work for both sides of a conflict,
Oh, yeah. So how'd you like the game? You've played a little bit of it. You rented it.
Rented it. We weren't sure if Blockbuster was going to be carrying this game, because normally their policy is to wait till Friday before putting up new games.
Yeah, this game strangely came out on a Sunday. So I sort of went out and, okay, Blockbuster doesn't get their games till Friday. They said they don't have it. So I found it at Family Video, actually, which I have to say real quick, has an adult room in the back and shows rated R movies on the television sets in there. So it's not the most appropriate name, but they have great deals, and they had 2 copies, so I got that. And then you were actually considering buying this and returning it.
Right, but unfortunately, I guess the return policy on video games is pretty strict. I could only return it if the case was unopened, which doesn't do me a lot of good.
Yeah, so I guess the good way to phrase this review for you is, if you would have bought it, would you return it?
That's a good question. I mean, I am so far enjoying it. I've really, really only scratched the surface so far.
Right.
But it's already pretty obvious that there's a lot to do here. That whole kind of playground of destruction concept that the first Mercenaries was kind of taglined with.
Right.
Is very evident. I mean,
totally.
I didn't play the first Mercenaries.
Me neither.
And so I wasn't sure what to expect, but you're looking around and you're just going, oh, I want that. I want to use this. Oh, there's this thing I need to unlock. I need to unlock this, and so I can do this. Just Grand Theft Auto offers that same kind of excitement, and if it was a choice between the two, GTA would win out hands down. This game is good, but it has some flaws. It has some poor voice acting at times. It has some messed up physics, and the world is certainly not as immersive.
And that's, as I've pointed out on this show, Amber and I actually went to Margarita Island, which is off of Venezuela, for our anniversary trip. And this game has Margarita Island. I saw it on the map. So I have to play it now just to find out, how accurately it's modeled, and blow something up. But yeah, so you're saying, it's like GTA Lite, maybe. It's not as fleshed out, but I mean, what game really is?
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. I mean, it's really its own animal in that it's far more combat-based. I mean, obviously, this is heavy weaponry and stuff like that, and something you can do in this game that you can't do in GTA is blow up buildings and blow up trees, and just the amount of destruction capable in this game is huge. I even heard that there's even, you can call in a nuclear strike.
Yes, you totally can.
So that is a whole different thing, and I mean, I was thinking about the only other game like this I've played is Crackdown, and this definitely is better than that. So it's in a comfortable place. Definitely worth checking out. It's worth a rental. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and that's perfect segue, because I'm having a lot of fun with this game. I really am considering buying it. Unlike you, I've actually gotten to play quite a bit of it, and I have to say, this is one of those games where I'm sitting at work and I just start thinking about it. I want to get back in there. I want to play it. It's totally emphasis on action, like you said. fantasies that you might have about your own action movie, this lets you live that out. Drive the car into the shanty town, blow things up like Rambo with rocket launchers, then grappling hook to a helicopter that flies by, get in, punch the pilot. There's actually like sort of God of War style, button pressing sequences. And one of them is you get up to the cockpit, it's like tap A to like grab him around the neck and B to like toss him out. But you take control of the helicopter and start raining missiles down on things. I mean, awesome. So right away. Yeah. And the thing to me, the comparisons to Grand Theft Auto are obvious, but to me, it's worthy because it's tropical. It's a jungle, which actually, as a big graphics fan, I'm loving the look of this game. I think the graphics are actually very good as GTA, if not better sometimes. Very detailed. And I gotta say, again, I think the helicopter flying and the driving actually felt a little better than GTA. You can definitely turn in this game better than you can in GTA. Hairpin turns were no problem for me in this, whereas I know a lot of people slide into walls in Grand Theft Auto. I'm just looking forward to playing more of it. So for me, it's a definite rent and possibly a buy. We'll see how I feel after playing it some more, but first impressions of Mercenaries 2 living up to what I was hoping it would be.
Any good game really will have like moments where you just feel awesome.
Exactly.
And in the first level of this game, it had a moment where I was just like, yes,
What was it? Go ahead.
Well, I got a tank, and I was driving around in this tank, and there's a winding road that goes down through this village. There's guys on rooftops shooting at you.
Right.
And I was like, well, I could drive down the winding road, and then I just start plowing through straight down through all the buildings and everything, blowing up whatever's in my way, and just made my own path. Something similar to that was there was a guy who was inside a maze. It was like one of those grassy...
Like a shrub maze or whatever.
Exactly, a labyrinth.
Mm-hmm.
And at first I'm like, oh man, I'm going to have to go through this labyrinth and find this guy. And I'm like, you know what? No. I'm going to jump in this Jeep and just drive through it straight to him.
Oh, exactly. I don't think... It's sort of like The Force Unleashed, how we talked about, they just sort of reset and say, you know what, people just want to be the dark side. They just want to have fun. This game knows its audience. It knows people just want to blow stuff up.
Yeah.
You could shoot each one of those guys off the roof. In fact, dudes in this game take a lot of hits. I don't know if you noticed that. They just get riddled with bullets and they keep firing. But it's like you could shoot them all or you could drive them all down.
And I guess that there is the sandbox aspect. You can take whatever approach you want to completing the objectives in this game.
Yeah, and that can be totally intoxicating, I think, is whenever you're just like, oh, man, so many choices. How shall I do it, know? So that about does it for our impressions of Mercenaries 2, one of my top anticipated games, and we will be getting on to some of yours in the coming months here. I know Fallout's coming out and some of those other things.
I'm so excited for Fallout 3. I cannot express my excitement. Anyways,
I guess the only way is in song.
Hail Fallout 3.
And cut. So that about wraps it up for our main topic of discussion. Before we close our show, we always like to get a little nostalgic. And this week, I'm sort of inspired by this Penny Arcade Expo. There's nobody in the gaming community that doesn't know about PAX. This year, I think they broke a record. They had about 50,000 attendees to their convention. And all of this from a tiny webcomic, the little webcomic that could. That got me thinking about comics before they were on the internet, as in the funnies.
Oh, yeah.
What were some of your favorite comic strips growing up?
Well, I mean, I initially got really into Garfield. I remember we had those book fairs at school, and I bought up like a bunch of these big collections, these big thick books of Garfield comics.
Right.
Everybody loves the I Hate Monday comics that would come out where Garfield would inevitably, no matter how hard he tries, find himself getting smacked in the face with a pie.
Right.
On Mondays. And
by the way, I just have to say about Garfield, I found out that he was not voiced by Bill Murray in the cartoon, but rather a guy that just was known for sounding like Bill Murray. And that guy died right before they did the new CG movie of Garfield. Bill Murray is the voice in the movie as a tribute to Lorenzo Music. who did the voice in the cartoon. So just a little fun fact there for you. But so you like Garfield. Of course, we got to remember Calvin and Hobbes. One of the awesome original. And, if you drive around, you see Calvin all the time because he's peeing on stuff on the back of endless pickup trucks. But as a tribute to Bill Watterson, I've got to say that I know for a fact there was no part of that comic where he peed on anything. There was a shot where he was sort of looking devious, and I think it's been copped and sort of reused with like the urine stream added. But the cool thing about Bill Watterson is the guy's kind of like a hermit. He doesn't really get involved. I mean, you would expect to see tons of toys and things for that comic, but he never licensed anything. He never really cared about, we talked about Eastman and Laird before with the Ninja Turtles. He went the opposite route. He just didn't sort of get involved.
Yeah.
And I respect that.
Yeah, I remember being kind of mad that there wasn't a Calvin and Hobbes cartoon on American television, at least. But we found out that Canada had a Calvin and Hobbes cartoon. And I actually, as a kid, that was important enough where I'm like, maybe we should move to Canada. It wasn't free healthcare whenever you were a kid. You were like, they have Calvin and Hobbes, and I want to watch it.
That's good enough for me.
So let's go.
There you go. Of course, there was Far Side.
Prince Charming.
Well, no, wait a minute. You weren't into Prince Charming. Prince Valiant.
Valiant. What was that all about?
The adult comic strip. One panel per week. How long will this stuff take? We weren't really into that. That was the one you sort of skipped. What is the state of comic strips today in the paper? Is it just a pathetic wasteland, or I just don't even know.
I don't know. If anything, that might be one of the few reasons why people still get the Sunday paper is so they can read the comics. I
think so.
Because the internet is already so much of a source for news and up-to-date info on that kind of thing. But honestly, I'm still a huge fan of webcomics or the webcomics that are going on, certainly.
Yeah, give a quick shout-out. What do you like besides Penny Arcade?
Well, Penny Arcade is good. Player versus Player. People would hate me if I didn't give a shout-out to Ominous Knife.
Okay. Haven't heard of that one.
Well, you haven't heard of it because it's done by my friends.
Oh, okay.
It's
Rock on.
It's ominousKnife.com, and it's a nerd comic. Once again, but the cool part is that a lot of my buddies appear in it, and it actually is funny. I mean, they're doing a good job, and they're invested in it. So
there's no cost really to get in on it, and as we've seen with Penny Arcade, sometimes there can actually be a financial benefit.
And I gotta shout out. I mean, it's not maybe a web comic, but it's close enough. HomestarRunner.com.
Oh yeah, and another group of creators who have kept out of the whole licensing thing. They refuse to put that on Adult Swim. And which seems like a perfect home, but they just want to keep it. And you know what? When you see the humor that they have on that, it's like Senior Cart Gauge Mortgage. They can only come from two people that are just allowed to do whatever the heck they want.
Yeah, there's a Homestar Runner game that is that just came out on WiiWare. To download.
Supposedly not bad. Yeah,
I'll have to check that out. I mean, it's episode 1. It's episodic, so hey, I don't know. I really got to look into that website again.
Yeah. So if you read any of these comics, Calvin and Hobbes, Far Side, and have fond memories of growing up geek like we do, you can send us an email, and our email address is mail@growing-up-geek.com. I think that's going to do it for this week.
I think that will.
So once again, my name is Brad.
And I'm Rob.
And we'll catch you next week.